There is an institution that is as old as our nation's fledgling democracy, an arm of the state that is provided for in the constitution of this great nation, the Gauteng Provincial Legislature. It is a remarkable body of governance that seeks to bring the voice of the 13 million people of Gauteng to the democratically elected government in Gauteng. It is no simple task, yet it is one that the Gauteng Provincial Legislature has done for the past 20 years and will continue to do so into the far future. This then is the story of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature, and it is a story that will affect both me and you. Gauteng Legislature, your view, our vision.
We are an activist legislature. What it means is we must ensure that we strengthen all the work that we do to ensure that the citizens have access, but they're able to interact. But if they want to raise issues, they're able to do that. But on the other hand, we need to build that capacity within ourselves to ensure that we're able to respond effectively to the issues that are being raised by the people. Because remember, we are the voice of the voiceless. So we need to be playing that role very, very effectively.
The legislature's mandate is to represent the public, so that the issues that affect the public on service delivery, with education, health, the roads, environment, anything else that you and I want to enjoy as a public good. The legislature is there to represent you.
Prior to 1994, there was no government. Government belonged to a certain group of people. But even that certain group of people, they were scared of actually raising voices. But remember, even during that time, we didn't have 9 provinces, we had only 4 provinces. And the way they were structured, they were only servicing a particular grouping of people.
We were a country where, as an official policy, were to be divided, not only in terms of race, but also along ethnic lines. I grew up in a place called Soweto. While Soweto is one big mega township, but if you are Sotho speaking, you live in a particular section, Xhosa, Zulu, etc.
South Africa's historical past was undemocratic. Public opinion, social participation, socio-political freedom and representation was stripped from the majority of South Africans. This repressive system would exist until 1994, when a democracy was born and restored to the nation. But undoing centuries of hatred and distrust is not easy. Under the new government, South Africa was demarcated into 9 provinces. The Pretoria Witwatersrand Vereniging province would later, after much public engagement, be renamed to Gauteng.
If you recall, at the time, there was no capital either of the Gauteng province. So one of the first things we had to do, we put out a public hearings to really look at where the capital of Gauteng should be, to involve people in the processes, and eventually decided that the capital of Gauteng should be Johannesburg. And after that, we then were able to locate where the legislature was going to be.
We started in Nasrec at the Bull Ring because that was the only place that had the capacity to cater for a legislature.
It was a whole big hall with a desk everywhere. You'd shout and, to the colleague at the other end, asking for this and that and so forth, in such a way that when we came here and had to be in our individual offices, it became lonely. We missed that shouting, we missed that family type of the unity that we had in Nasrec.
The challenge here was, imagine that you are in a place where it's a multi-party democracy. We're coming with different views and different approaches to things, and yet we have negotiated a settlement in South Africa to build a democracy. And therefore it meant we had to be tolerant of each other. Because here you are, you're an ANC member, you've been fighting in the struggle, and suddenly now you are confronted with the very same people that had been throwing you in jail, that had been chasing you in the streets, that had been shooting you, now you have to sit around here in this very legislature and begin to understand their role too.
I know it's easy to refer to us, to some of us, as former terrorists, Magu bar bombers, former apartheid fascists. I would like to appeal, please try to do away with the adjectives. No Magu bar bomber here. We have parliamentarians, members of the provincial legislature.
So there was a lot of mistrust and a lot of some tensions amongst ourselves, amongst the different parties. So it was a really funny situation initially when we started. But as time went on, things were normalized and so on, saying that, okay, we may differ in ideology and so on, but ultimately we have a same responsibility to ensuring that this government in Gauteng works for our people.
What I remember about that period was it was exciting because although there were great differences between us, you had the sense you were actually building something new, you know. This was really going to change South Africa.
And it did. But what changed?
After 1994, we built in institution structures that belong to all our people.
The adoption of the Constitution as the highest law of the land gave birth to government systems and processes, governance structures, including provincial legislatures and its mandates. Furthermore, the Constitution had an influence on Gauteng legislature's internal arrangements, specifically its standing rules. The South African political system uses a three-pronged separation of powers with distinct mandates. These are the embodiment of our democracy. First, the legislature's mandate is to play oversight over the executive, make laws and incorporate public participation through all its processes. The executive has the authority and responsibility for the daily administration of the nation. The judiciary is responsible for ensuring that the law is upheld in society. Amongst some of its duties, it interprets the law and applies the law to specific cases. To run its affairs, the legislature is guided by the Constitution, applicable laws, and the standing rules and orders.
The rules of Gauteng legislature are more of a hybrid because there were invitations to people from Germany, from France, from different places to come and workshop us. So it was a combination, not of what South Africa had, but we were looking for the best rules.
We'd started up after all the other democracies had come into being, and we wanted to take the best from all the other democracies. So I hope we did as good a job as we could in the circumstances, and yes, I think we started off with some very good rules, and we've tried to work within those rules.
There are 4 mandates that direct the operations of the legislature. Lawmaking in the province includes passing laws within provincial competency, reviewing, amending, or repealing past laws.
You see, we inherited a system which was so unjust and unfair and so biased that every piece of legislation, provincial and national, had to be looked at anew.
So we found ourselves having to write legislation without any of us really being experts in the field of legislation.
In most cases in Gauteng and even in other provinces, even nationally, government departments are the ones who are always active when it comes to the laws. But here at the legislature, we can even make laws on our own as members. We call it members' bill. So you will table that in a committee. There will be a committee that the speaker elects, so it's an ad hoc committee. that will specifically deal with those amendments, and you will table what you think should be amended to or should be done. And then there will be those processes that will follow. There will be public hearings. There will be people that are being called to be involved so that you can check the pros and cons. Presentations will be done by those people that come to committee meetings, by the way, that have a keen interest on the amendments or on the law that you want to make. And then finally, it will become a law.
We make the laws to facilitate development so that you can enjoy a better quality of life. For instance, if you want good quality education, the legislature representing you must then develop an education law that makes it possible for you and your children and your children's children to receive quality education.
It can also be introduced through a petition, where a member of the public, a group of people may bring a petition whose full response could require a provincial or even a national law. Just recently, we've conducted a study that we had undertaken of laws passed since 1994. I think the outcome of that has indicated a mixed bag. There are some laws that now require amendment because the conditions have changed. So we'll be engaging with the different committees to bring back the report and basically with the relevant departments to indicate to them where the laws that have been passed, where are the weaknesses, and what can we do to ensure that we close those gaps.
The legislature's oversight role and scrutiny over the work of provincial departments is key to holding departments accountable regarding service delivery in the province.
The Gauteng legislature does oversight over government departments.
Pele ke dula fase ka rata gore bjale ka ge re fentse lenaneo la kgatelelo le kgethollo re tlo bo fenya bosenyi mo provinseng ya rena mogologolo o boletse a re se se sa felego se a hlola a bušare le ge o ka e buela leopeng magoko o bua go bona re le badudi ba Gauteng re mabogoko o bua democracy.
There's two parts to it. One is ensuring that government's accountable on the things it needs to be done. Second is to ensure that the government is made aware of problems that may exist in various communities.
Our oversight as the legislature is complementary. It is not adversarial. So if there are weaknesses, our responsibility is to point out those weaknesses and to make recommendations. If government does not accept those recommendations, it must still come back to the legislature and explain why it has not accepted those.
Oversight is, simply put, this is a process by which the legislature holds the government to account. And this is enshrined in the Constitution, requiring legislatures and parliament to hold government accountable. In 2002, 2003, the Gauteng legislature established and introduced what was known as a program evaluation and budget analysis model, which is an oversight model that it utilizes to hold government accountable. And this now manifests in the form of the submission and the tabling of quarterly reports by various government departments, government agencies and entities to the legislature for the legislature's own consideration and interrogation. And the fact that this oversight model has since been adopted by the whole country, we see that as a major milestone. And so we now have a system. It provides for a much more scientific, much more systematic way in which we hold government to account.
So when you are a Minister of Small and Medium Enterprises like myself, for instance, I've already gone to Parliament, presented my plan for the next 3 years. They've scrutinized that plan, they've criticized that plan, they've made additions to the plan because they are representing the public. Then they engage with the communities to find out whether the plan that you said you were going to implement in those communities, is it being implemented or not?
In his 1994 inaugural address, former President Nelson Mandela, the stalwart of our struggle, declared, and I quote, out of experience of an extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long, must be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. Our daily deeds as ordinary South Africans must produce an actual South African reality that will reinforce humanity's belief in justice, strengthen its confidence in the nobility of the human soul, and sustain all our hopes for a glorious life for all.
Well, the legislature primarily carries out its duties through its committees. There are primarily two types of committees we'd have. One would be called portfolio committees. Those would mirror government departments such as health, human settlements, social development, sports, arts, recreation, etc. So those are portfolio committees. There would be an MEC in charge who will account to that committee. But we have standing committees that have to do with transversal and cross-cutting issues.
It's actually a breaking down of the legislature's work into various sectors. It then looks on behalf of the legislature a specific department. If it's a portfolio committee, and if it's a standing committee, it looks at specific issues like SCOPA on finance and finances, or the petitions on public participation. But all we're doing is the work of the legislature. So we're breaking the work of the legislature into smaller units, which gives effectiveness and direct focus.
The committee inquiry system is another innovation by the Gauteng legislature. It is a type of an oversight mechanism which applies an investigative approach to scrutinizing departments and community issues. The inquiry system was first piloted in the Klein-Fontaine community.
Did you identify the members who had spoken to the department and speak directly to them?
The most usual way I can do with that is to say, colleagues, I'm here asking about anybody who knows about this situation. But even if it's difficult here, consult me individually.
Can you confirm, you're saying there's an allegation that blacks have been beaten up by people of this community or in the area. If there were any cases, what happened to them?
Mob justice, I know, and the MEC came in April last year, but it was at Zitobeni, where people were beaten for being suspected of stealing or committing crime. I haven't heard yet of this committee or Boschkop committee having such a situation.
Klein-Fontaine for me was a very good lesson. For the legislature, it asserted us. Even that community knew when they didn't know before that there's Gauteng legislature.
There are a number of ways that the legislature reaches out to the public, such as taking Parliament to the people, stakeholder engagements, public hearings, and Bua le Setjhaba.
Public participation is very important. And Gauteng legislature has done very well.
I-legislature yabantu, ayo legislature yethu.
What is the intention for us to have interactions with communities, with the society, with people of Gauteng, explaining to them what is the legislature, what is the function of the legislature, what is the function of government. Because we realize that very few people know how government works. In fact, very few knows that there's also a separation of power. As a result of that, we wanted to engage with communities. First was to assist them to understand how government works, but also secondly, we wanted them to express their views in all structures of government in our country. But particularly because we're in Gauteng legislature at the time, we wanted people to come to the legislation, to express their views, to make proposals, to make suggestions, because we always believe that people should, by and large, participate fully in decisions that affect their life. That's what really we're trying to do.
From the very beginning, I think that was a priority for the legislature. How were we going to ensure that our people could continue to participate beyond voting in the processes of decision-making in the legislature? The decisions that legislatures make have an impact on people's lives. They decide how much money should go to education as opposed to healthcare, as opposed to economic development in the province. So those are decisions that we thought the people should have a role in participating in. That's why we set up the public a public participation office. We set up a petitions and public participation committee, in addition to the other committees on housing and so forth. And their mandate, their role was to investigate how to encourage and facilitate public participation.
There are a number of ways that the legislature reaches out to the public, such as taking Parliament to the people, stakeholder engagements, public hearings, and Bua le Setjhaba.
You come to Gauteng, we have a program called Bua le Setjhaba, which is basically a Sotho word that says talking to the nation.
Bua le Setjhaba is a recent innovation of committees taking large-scale surveys of communities on social issues affecting the communities. Public hearings, such as this one in Thokoza in the south of Gauteng, occur regularly and provide a direct link between the public and the legislature.
It's my first time coming here for the public participation. So we are here to hear if whatever they're going to promise is going to be true or not. So anything thereafter, maybe like next year, we'll check.
They listen to what we are telling them and take notes and send it back to the people, send it back to us, those reports and everything. I think the legislature is playing a vital role because without them we can't access. If you want to report a councillor or whoever, then if you fail to do it through municipality, you can do it through the legislature, then the voice can be heard.
The petition system is a significant way in which you and I can interact with the legislature.
We needed a platform where we can engage directly with the people. And unfortunately, you will not know what are people's thinking every day, 7 days a week. So the legislature then adopted a Petitions Act.
The Petitions Act encourages any member of the public, any individual or collective, to petition the legislature on any issue, whether it relates to local government, provincial or national. You petition, you submit your petition, and it is now, at the stage now, there's e-petitioning. So you do it online.
As an individual, I may raise this. If you have your lights and you don't understand why are the lights increasing, and every time you go to that local municipality that is concerned, they are not giving you a satisfactory answer, and you feel that as an individual, your rights have been infringed, you have a right to launch a petition.
Isimo sala down sibuhlungu kakhulu. Ngendaba ukuthi izindlu zithathwa ngabanye abantu ngapha. Sina sahlala emkhukhwini, asiyazi ugesi. We work with the department to be able to solve this problem.
Now, it's no longer your issue. It is the committee of the legislature that will be acting on your behalf, calling the municipality, in your presence, by the way, because you will be there. You will know what is it that they are saying. And you'll also be given an opportunity to say, no, what you are saying is not true. And I have to say, we do have successful stories. For example, there was one school in Forchville. In that school, African children were not allowed because of the barrier of the language. The school adopted the policy that has to say those learners who want to enroll in that school, it must be learners who want to have Afrikaans as a language. There was a petition to this institution. The legislature committee managed to make sure that those learners are given the opportunity. And through that now, that school is open and African learners are allowed to apply in their choice of language that they want to do in that school.
Another way in which we promote public participation is through what we refer to as sector work. And so the legislature has established sector parliaments, and we're not the only legislature that does that, and this is part of international experience as well. So we now have a youth parliament. Some of us have gone through those youth parliaments in our days. Youth parliament where young people get exposure to the workings of a parliament. We have women's parliament. Of recent, we now have children's parliament.
In Vereniging, the sector parliament on older persons had lively deliberations on issues affecting the sector.
We know the government of today is trying its level best with us saying we don't see what they are doing, which is very untrue. There's a lot of changes that have been done. We are glad as senior citizens that today we are able to participate, to put our request, to put our needs to the ruling government.
I appreciate the legislature because everything the issues which raised by the people here now, like now, next year, before they doing the sector parliament, they call us to come and give us the feedback. If we don't see what they say has been changed, then we raise it again.
I think we're the first province to talk to lesbians, gays, bisexuals, transgender, etc. Because they are a community. Regardless of what your moral stand is, these are citizens, and the Constitution guarantees their rights. We can't discriminate on the basis of gender or sexual preference. We talk to commercial sex workers. They're a huge community, particularly in areas like here in Gauteng.
The LGBTI, or Lesbians, Gays, Bisexuals, Transsexuals, Transgender and Intersex Parliament, focuses primarily on the lingering persecution and prejudice still experienced by the sector of community.
By being in the parliament today, I've gained a lot of things that most of them I was not aware of them. And I felt very proud because the government is now recognizing us, though it has started by our former president, Dr. Nelson Mandela, has talked about the discrimination that was in the country because of the LGBTIs. So now the government is taking from where he has started. I feel very much proud.
The legislature has offered me a space where I could raise my voice. I think they're playing a very huge role. Hence here we are surrounded by LGBTI from different areas, townships, cities. I think this is a great move.
But then the question is, so what? If we are able to engage with these sections of our community, what comes out of it? Does it really help to improve their conditions? Does it help us to build unity whilst noting diversity? Because we are a secular state also, remember. There are people who just think it's totally abhorrent. Why do we even want to talk to commercial sexual workers? They're citizens. So to that extent, there are a lot of very creative things that Gauteng has tried.
So those sector parliaments are very important. They shaped also and highlighted issues that are affecting the public out there.
Cooperative governance is a relatively new mandate that seeks to ensure the smooth cooperation between the three arms of the state: the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature.
It takes its premise from the Constitution itself, which provides for three arms of the state, which is the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. And within the state itself, you have three layers: national, provincial, and local government. So it enjoins all those elements of the state to work together within their respective responsibilities, maintaining their independence, but cooperating with each other to realize the constitutional mandate, which is that of making a better life for our people.
Constitutionally, all spheres of governance, they are distinct, interdependent, and then that's why we want to encourage the cooperative nature of our governance. There's no big sister or big brother. All of them have their jurisdiction. They work according to what the Constitution says to them. But because South Africa is a unitary country, all of them must work together to advance the better life for all our people.
I guess from the rules that have been adopted for this assembly, I'm a guest in this house together with Mayor Dumangosi. Today is a historic day in the life of the legislature. It's the first time since the advent of democracy that public representatives at local and provincial level have come together inside the legislature to outline a common program of action to improve the lives of the people of the province.
We want a city region that is inclusive,
So developing social strategies that have to move in tandem with economic development.
The world over, technology and the rise of social media is forcing organizations to adapt their communication strategy. The legislature is one of the hubs through which the public can engage with the state, and it has identified key strategies for the future.
We are modernizing the manner in which we are going to interact with the people of Gauteng. One of those is to bring information and communication technology in the space of governance. People don't have to travel all the way to the legislature because there's technology that can make it possible for them to deposit their ideas. We are busy at work to create a platform wherein people can just deposit their ideas. And there must be a way in which we as public representatives can interact with that space in social media to ensure that we elevate those issues that people are speaking about into policy interventions that can then address some of the challenges that the people are facing.
I think to me, Gauteng must continue to experiment new ideas and new principles and experiments how you deal and deepen democracy in our country. If we do that, I think it would be a better way of doing it. And then I hope that Gauteng legislature won't really stop experimenting new thinking, new ideas, challenging old ideas, because otherwise we won't progress. We must never reach a stage of stagnation where there are no new ideas how legislation should work, because democracy must be perfected almost every day. Then this legislature, in my view, must do that. It's capable of doing it.
As with any young but large organization, there are challenges that still remain.
We must ask the question, having done all of these things, what is the outcome? What is the impact? Because in the past, it was enough just to look at the input, output. We said we'll meet on this date at this venue. We did meet, 500 people came. That's no longer enough. Does that help us improve the quality of the people? Do we change things for the better?
One of the things that we're doing is when we have sittings, we invite different stakeholders to come and actually observe how we run our meetings. Immediately after the sittings, we call those stakeholders, we talk to them, we make them to understand, because at times sitting at the gallery, you might not even understand what is happening. So that is not meaningful. When we say it should be meaningful public participation, it means we must go back to them, explain what was happening, who asked that question, what is the reason, and why a particular MEC responded in a particular fashion. And if we're not happy, what then will be the process going forward?
I can encourage other people to come, but the problem, the information, we don't get it in time. We get it after some of the things. That's why maybe most of the people, they don't know and they don't attend.
I won't say they're not trying, but maybe it's not enough, But initiatives are there, the trying is there. These events, such events prove that they are trying something out. But then as to the effectiveness of the things that they're trying, I'm not sure how effective they are.
It will be bad if those issues are just, a talk of the mouth. There's nothing that is going to be happening. I hope that the Gauteng provincial legislature will make sure that they facilitate the implementation of the resolution.
But lastly, if you look at South Africa in general, we're really a country that desperately seeks to involve the people. We've built a lot of structures. We need to go back and ask a fundamental question. Are the systems in place adequate? Do they allow for meaningful participation? But also by meaningful participation, what do we mean? Is it just a question of consulting, saying, I've told you, I don't care what your view is, as long as I've convened a meeting and you were there, I've consulted. But does it also mean that there must always be consensus? So you have all of those practical challenges. But I'm satisfied where we are, that there is an honest attempt to revisit the issue of meaningful public participation.
I think in the 20 years of democracy, it has not really managed to make people understand exactly the fact that you don't do it only because the legislator or the legislative person who's a rep has come in. You do it continuously.
You don't do it only because we're going into elections. At the end of the day, as we build this democracy, it cannot be built by just us politicians making the decisions. We make the decisions on the basis of addressing the needs and the challenges that are facing the people on the ground.
Be involved. It's no use staying at home and wishing and wishing and wishing and you get nothing. Don't feel sorry for yourself. Go out there and get help.
The future of Gauteng and South Africa are entwined in one another, and as the world, the nation and the people, Gauteng, you and me, look to the legislature to continue its good work in providing us with a voice in our democracy, we must never forget that it can only function because of us. It can only work because we participate. It can only represent us because we represent ourselves.
I look back with pride, to be honest. I look back with pride because even the anger that some of us had at the time when we came in here, we had to melt it down because we needed to build this country. And because we believe the country belongs to all who live in it, black and white. That's what the Freedom Charter said a long time ago. That was the base for us from where we had to work.
And the Gauteng legislature, from the technical services that are provided, are, I think, of a quality that is not matched in too many places in the country. Even in Parliament, some of the services that are provided here are definitely at the level, even above the level of Parliament. And there are some that in Parliament, of course, are in excess of those here. But certainly the Gauteng legislature has done very well over the last 20 years.
I believe that we have done a lot. There's still more to be done. But the Gauteng provincial legislature, I salute it. It comprises of men and women who are committed, hard workers, and it made Gauteng to be the province.
Democracy is very difficult. It's very difficult, and we make it work. We are learning every day. National Assembly is learning, provincial legislature is learning. Every time Speakers Forum meet and have a discussion about this element of people's participation, the oversight function of the executive, how to make it better, how to make government accountable, and how to hold the executive accountable to the legislatures is the work really in progress. But I think we are on track. It's going to take long though, but we are on track. I'm very happy about that.
It certainly is a better place. If you look at the facilities that people have, if you look at the fact that they can participate in the political process and so forth, no shadow of doubt that Gauteng is a better place than what it was 20 years ago. And I think to the credit of the Gauteng provincial legislature, although I would have criticisms of some of the things that have been done, they've kept the boat going quite well, actually.
As we approach the 20-year anniversary of democracy, we rededicate ourselves to the noble goals of building a united, a just, a non-racial, non-sexist and prosperous South Africa.
So if you then ask a simple question to say what has been the 20 years all about, it's been a process of evolution. I think there was a point where we could correctly have been referred to as infants. We became toddlers, babies. We are in our teenage years. 21 were at that point where we must become adults, hopefully would mature. Compared to the rest of the world, we're still a baby. The American Constitution is over 200 years. You look at the UK. So South Africa must be prepared to look at itself proudly, say we have done something right, but there are things that we did not do so right. But the question is, how do we improve and move forward and ensure that the country of our dreams does become realized in our lifetime?
I want to appeal to the citizens of Gauteng to actually use this institution. It is their institution. If you really want to learn more, ask us. We have a civic education unit that will come and teach you about how government works, how you can actually use the legislature to ensure that your voice is heard. When we talk about democracy, we talk about a situation where everybody has a voice, everybody is able to participate, and everybody has, is able to meet with the person that he or she has elected into office.
In the annals of history, the Gauteng Provincial Legislature will stand out as an activist and transformative legislature whose vision sought to contribute to improving the lives of the people of Gauteng. Certainly, the legislature has evolved and grown considerably over the past 2 decades. A tribune of the people of Gauteng, the legislature continues in its quest to foster accountability and to promote socio-economic development. The 20-year journey has been steered by distinct milestones in all the mandates of the legislature, as well as related innovations. The 20-year journey is the narrative of hope and a better future.